What's up, guys? How y'all doing today? Welcome back to the next gamer review, and this is a game that I will admit I have been very skeptical of. The leaks, the rumors, and then the final announcement that happened about a year and a half ago. This is a game that, to say the least, like I just mentioned, I have been very skeptical of this game, knowing my absolute love and adoration of the original release. For today's review, I'm here to talk about the remake of Silent Hill 2, which, as y'all can imagine, is the remake of Silent Hill 2, which, for those of you who have known me for a long time, or those who know me personally, you will all know that Silent Hill 2 is not only my favorite horror game of all time, but this game is legitimately in my top 3 games of all time. Silent Hill 2 to me is the pinnacle and the definition of survival horror at its best. Now, sure, I know that a lot of you may say, well, what about Resident Evil? Like Resident Evil 1, 2, or even 4 for that matter. I am a massive Resident Evil fan. I mean, Resident Evil will always have a special place in my heart. But there's just something about the psychological horror of Silent Hill, specifically Silent Hill 2, that just really hits me on a deeper level. And that's because psychological horror to me is a type of horror that I love experiencing the very most. Game about comes to the point, guys, because I've been rambling up before to him. But anyways, getting into the plot, in Silent Hill 2, we play as a character named James Sunderland, a widower who receives a letter from his wife, Mary, who claims to be in the town of Silent Hill waiting for him. Once James reaches the town of Silent Hill is full of nothing but the worst horrors and the worst of nightmares. A couple of things before I continue on here, guys. Before I continue on with today's video, I just wanted to say welcome to my channel, everybody. For those of you who are coming by my channel for the very first time, be sure to hit the subscribe button so that it's a future video, it's a future review, a reaction, a top 5, or whatever I have coming your way, and join me on my journey to 10K subscribers and beyond, because believe me when I say this, guys, you are not going to miss the cool stuff I have coming your way. And for those of you coming back to my channel, by the way, welcome back, everybody. You have no idea how happy I'm to see your faces once again. And let's share our conversation below. What did you guys think of Silent Hill 2 Remake? Did you guys think this game is worthy of Silent Hill's name? Did you guys think it was a worthy remake, or do you think that this remake was utter garbage? Also, guys, before I continue on as well, the footage that you're seeing was captured on a PS5. Silent Hill 2 the Remake is a game that, to say the least, I have been very skeptical of. I was very cautious of this game, and I was also very worried knowing that the developer of this game, Bloober team, was making this game. No offense to them, but Bloober team for me hasn't always made the best games. Even though, don't get me wrong to say this, guys, I really liked Layers of Fear. From what I played of Observer, I thought that was an interesting game. But when it comes down to their other games, like for example, Blair Witch, and before Silent Hill 2 Remake came out, The Medium, they were a developer that, to say the least, I was very skeptical of seeing how they would handle remaking my favorite horror game of all time. But then I heard all the pre-release buzz saying, guys, this game is really good. So, as y'all can imagine, my curiosity piqued. I bought the game, and guys, after 15 hours, I am very happy to say that Bloober team proved me wrong. Let's get into my reasons as to why I believe that Silent Hill 2 Remake is not only a worthy remake, but a fantastic game. The first thing that I gotta talk about that I absolutely loved about this remake, in which, as y'all can imagine, the most obvious thing here, the graphics and the art direction. Silent Hill 2 Remake is a beautiful looking game. Now, obviously, guys, here's the thing. This game, as y'all can tell, it is definitely a change in gameplay style, where the original game Star Wars with fixed camera angles, some in Dutch angles, but it was definitely more of a fixed camera angle style of game. This one, however, as y'all can see here, the most obvious thing, one of the biggest changes in Silent Hill 2 Remake is knowing that this game is played from a third-person perspective, kind of like the Resident Evil remakes or The Last of Us. Silent Hill 2 looks absolutely amazing, and by the way, just so you guys know right now, performance mode on this game looks absolutely amazing, as you guys can clearly tell from the gameplay that you're seeing. While fidelity mode does look great, in fact it looks amazing, but here's the thing, I'm not gonna lie to you guys, switching from both modes, there's really these small differences. I mean, if you look closely, you may see more detail on certain objects, but really guys, the best way to play Silent Hill 2 Remake is most definitely on performance mode, because here's the thing guys, the cutscenes do go back to 30 frames per second, but once you switch back to the gameplay, you know, the in real-time gameplay of Silent Hill 2, it does go back to 60 frames per second. Whether you're traversing through the fog, the dense fogs of Silent Hill, or exploring the buildings like the apartments, the hospital, the historical society, Heaven's Night, this game looks absolutely amazing. As soon as you start this game, you can tell that Bloober team has an affection, they have a love, and best of all, they respect the source material so much to the point that sure, while there are some changes in this game to which I'll go into here later in this review, but still nonetheless, while Bloober team definitely made some small changes, you can tell that Bloober team treated the original source material with the most utmost respect. And what we have here as a result is a game that not only feels great, it looks great, but most importantly, it is a game that you can tell is made by fans, by people who love the original release, but they just wanted to update it and some certain ways modernize it for a modern audience. And man, I gotta tell you guys right now, especially when it comes down to the graphics and art direction, Bloober team absolutely knocked out of the park on this one. Are there times in performance mode where the frame rate does drop? Yeah, it does, but it doesn't drop to a point where it gets unplayable. Did it ruin my experience of playing any of this game? Absolutely fucking not. One thing in particular that I absolutely loved about this game was the voice acting. The voice acting in this game, honest to God, was a huge improvement over the original release. Now, again, the original release is in my top 3 favorite games of all time. If there's one thing in particular that this game definitely improves upon the original, it is most definitely the voice acting. In particular, the voice actors for James Sunderland and Angela. Luke Roberts portrays James Sunderland in this game, and Gianna Keel, I'm hoping I'm pronouncing your name right, portrays Angela. These two in particular absolutely killed it. All of the voice acting here, guys, is terrific. As a matter of fact, like I said, all the voice acting is a massive improvement over the original game. There is a sequence in this game, there's a cutscene in this game that involves Angela with a knife. Honest to God, I came out of that sequence almost crying. My favorite cutscenes of this game are where the screen time is with James and Angela. As for me, guys, or at least in my personal opinion, these cutscenes had the most powerful bits of Silent Hill 2, but the acting from Luke Roberts, who portrays James Sunderland in this game, easily gives one of the best performances of the entire year from video games. This scene, guys, is such a calm, quiet scene, but it was so powerfully done. It really does have some of the best acting in a video game this year. Like, it's legitimately that good, guys. This is a thing that you could praise about either release, the original or the remake. That is the storytelling of Silent Hill 2. Of course, no spoilers, but for those of you who have played the original release of Silent Hill 2, you all know that this game is a game that has a story that is a very, I mean to say the least, is a very hard-hitting game, especially knowing the topics and the themes that it covers. Now, obviously, I'm not going to touch upon those or say what they are for the video in case of those who haven't played the game, but I would just will say this much. For either at least I play this game, I'm actually going to recommend the remake because of the modernized gameplay. I do think the original in some certain areas of the storytelling does hit slightly harder only because In some cutscenes, you know, the Dutch angles are prevalent. But if there's something in particular that I gotta praise that Bloober team did, is that in certain parts of the game that they do keep intact some of the Dutch angles, in particular with the cutscenes, which I was very, very happy about. There are bits in this game where it will hit you. Another thing in particular that I absolutely love about Silent Hill 2 Remake, and once again, this is going over something that I think was improved upon the original release, the music and the sound design. The sound design of this game, I imagine that Bloober team had to do a lot of things in terms of making this game feel immersive, especially in the sound design. Knowing everything is such in a three-dimensional space and a very immersive space, they had to make every sound cue not only immerse you, but of course scare the hell out of you. There were so many times where, I don't know if you guys have had those moments, but you know when you have those moments when you have those audible gulp moments? That happened to me a couple of times during this game, and not to mention as well, I need to talk about this. I mean, come on guys, as you all can imagine, the musical score of this game composed by Akira Yamaoka. By the way, I apologize if I butchered your name, sir, because this man is one of my favorite composers working today. Every theme of the original release is here, but I will say that there are some tracks you could definitely feel that they enhanced and they expanded upon when they needed to. The work that was done on the score just only elevated what was already, at least in my opinion, a masterpiece of a musical score. Something else that I gotta talk about, and I mentioned it briefly earlier, so I'm gonna go into more detail about this right here. How this game faithfully recreates some feelings from the original game, but they make some changes. Remember on the original release how James gets that plank of wood for the first time when you had to fight and defeat your first enemy? In some ways, I did kind of miss how they did the encounter in the original release, but in other ways, I do kind of prefer how they did it in this new release. I grew to really appreciate what Bloober team did for this game, because here's the thing, and once again guys, just the notion of wanting to remake, at least in my personal opinion, the best horror game of all time, to say that's a gargantuan task right there is an understatement, but still nonetheless, what Bloober team did here in terms of making some changes here and there, I thought they did a brilliant job. And not to mention as well, the thing that I wanted to see what Bloober team would do is recreating that feeling that I first had playing Silent Hill 2 for the very first time. The feeling of anxiety, that feeling of paranoia, the feeling of knowing or not knowing in this case of what is coming, whether you're going to the fog, going to the corners, exploring Silent Hill or the buildings, and especially not knowing what could be waiting for you in the next room that you're exploring. Bloober team absolutely nailed that feeling of anxiety and paranoia and making you feel scared shitless the entire time. Something else that I absolutely loved about this game is how Bloober team uses the darkness of this game with the flashlight. The flashlight does such a great job of making you feel like that while you're getting enough light, the darkness in Silent Hill 2 Remake does such a great job of making you feel that paranoia and the pressure of what's coming up next. Something else I gotta talk about here is the combat of Silent Hill 2 Remake. James Sunderland is not John Wick. He's not a martial expert. He's not a guy that knows his way around weapons, especially when it comes down to aiming a gun at the creatures, the weapon sway, and not to mention as well the recoil, the impact of everything. The combat here is brutal, and once again, like I mentioned to you guys earlier, it gives you so much anxiety, but most importantly, the combat with every single encounter, I love this about this game, guys, is unpredictable. There are so many bits of this game where I legitimately felt like I thought I knew how the enemies attacked, and I was dead wrong, and as a result of it, I got my ass kicked many times, even though I only died, I think, twice in the game, and man, there are times when you think you've gotten the upper hand, and believe me, you haven't. Going on to the most important thing about Silent Hill 2 Remake, and that is this. Is the game scary? Yeah. This game is not only scary, there are times where this game is absolutely terrifying. To say that I am very happy as a massive fan of that original release is a huge understatement. Especially, guys, when it comes down to the prison level. No joke here, guys. I do not remember the prison level being that scary or that tension filled. This is a game that definitely got me more than a couple of times. And by the way, the first time that I encountered Pyramid Head, to say I was freaked out is a massive, and I mean a massive, understatement. Ah! God damn it! Are there a couple of issues that hold this game back from being one of the greatest remakes of all time? Yes. First of which being this, and that is Maria. All the voice acting in this game is spectacular, especially for Maria. I mean, her voice actor is terrific in this game. My main criticism with Maria is the design of her. If you have played the original release, you all know that Maria is a very seductive character, but you could just tell that there is just something about her that isn't quite right. I just wish that in this remake that they made her a bit more seductive and they still kept that feeling of her in the original game. Now, I will say this much, guys. There's a great Easter egg, there's a great reference to her design her clothes in the original game, which I really like. The Bloober team did that, but I will say this much. Her character in this game didn't have that same seductive or that same evil feeling that you got in that original game. Going into something else that I wasn't a fan of, and that is a combat element. In this remake, if you get damaged too much when you go into your cautionary state, there's this red vignette. And personally for me, I thought whenever the red vignette came on, it was distracting and it took away from the tension this game had. Something I didn't realize is that if you go into the pause menu into, I believe the gameplay or the display area or display options, you can turn off the vignette, which I do recommend because to me, the red vignette to me just kind of takes away from this game, and to me, it was more of a distraction than anything else. Turn off the red vignette and makes the game that much more immersive. That's just my personal opinion. The last thing that I gotta talk about here is the Eddie boss. The Eddie boss in the original game is terrifying, it's suspenseful, and it's really anxiety-induced boss. Now, for me personally, the Eddie boss here, I was so curious to see how Bloober team tackled this, and once I got there, how it started off was really, really cool and very suspenseful. Now, I don't know if you guys experienced this, but I certainly did. In terms of the art direction, the visuals, and this one area, there are some bits where I felt like I had to deal with some glitches in this one area. So overall, Silent Hill 2 Remake was a game that I was skeptical of, I was worried, and I was very nervous knowing that Bloober team was remaking my favorite survival horror game of all time. But I am so happy to say that Bloober team proved me wrong. Silent Hill 2 Remake is not only a worthy remake, but it is a fantastic game. And honest to God, your guys, if Bloober team wants to remake Silent Hills 1, 3, and 4, I would absolutely down to see what they want to do, because man, Bloober team did a fantastic job of recreating that feeling that I first time I played this game for the first time years ago. But they made some changes, some good changes at that, and by the end of this game, gotta tell you all, they absolutely nailed it. All in all, I'm gonna give Silent Hill 2 Remake a 9 out of 10. Silent Hill 2 Remake is a fantastic game, and if you love the original release, I strongly implore you guys to give this game a chance, because believe me guys when I say this, I didn't want this remake to happen, but man, I am glad it did, because it is a terrific game. I hope you all enjoyed my review of Silent Hill 2 Remake. If so, please hit the like button, or if you dislike the review, hit the dislike button. If you guys want to see my previous 2 reviews, please click to the left or right side of the screen. And of course, until my next review or video goes live, I'll see you all next time.